In our top story tonight, a charge that the leader of the opposition Barbados Labour Party is out of control and is out to bring down the government by any means. We hear more in this report from Sandals.
That charge was leveled by Minister of Finance Chris Sinclair at a DLP St. James South branch meeting last evening. According to Mr. Sinclair, there are elements in this country who believe they can incite violence and unrest. He is calling on Barbadians to reject this type of political mischief.
This society today is not like a 91 or 81 or 76.
Definitely not 1930s.
And definitely not 1930s. We are far more advanced society with the technology for damage in this country. And when you hear these subtle messages going out from people who don't know no better, but worse yet, from people who should know better, then you have to be very, very concerned about what is going on in this country.
Minister of Industry Donald Innes dismissed suggestions that the cabinet be cut, saying little will come from it. He believes Barbados should move to a stage where there is a fixed number of cabinet posts
that are decided on by Parliament and that can only be altered by Parliament, similar to how the US system is on that score. Now this, to my mind, helps the Prime Minister too in deciding who takes which portfolio, etc. And his hands are somewhat tied by the fact that he just can't create a post like that. It also allows for some scrutiny of who are going to occupy posts and further checks and balances in our system.
Mr. Innes says he does not support the proposal for a group of eminent persons as suggested by the opposition Barbados Labour Party. He also does not support the notion that democracy is not alive in Barbados. Sandals, CBC News.
A senior member of the Barbados Labour Party has called for peace in the organization as it took its People's Assembly to St. George last night. Sir Louis Tull also had a message for former Prime Minister Owen Arthur. The former Barbados Labour Party cabinet minister steered clear of calling names or mentioning the ongoing battle between former Prime Minister Owen Arthur and opposition leader Mia Mottley. He did note that Miss Mottley was a competent leader and that she and the new DLP had what it took to govern Barbados. In his short presentation, Sir Louis made it clear that he knew when it was time to hang up his political boots and that others should too.
I was in the House of Assembly up to 2008. And Billy Miller said to me one day, "Tell you done?" And I says, "Yes, Billy, I done." And she told me that she too done. Because there comes a time when one must move on.
He called on party faithfuls to stick to the task at hand.
We don't have time to be caught up in petty squabbles and personal enmities and that kind of thing. The people of this Barbados Labour Party family and the people of Barbados demand something nobler than that.
In her contribution, Ms. Mottley dismissed the proposal put forward by government to ensure that no two people in the same household will be sent home when public sector retrenchments begin at month end.
We know the fluidity of living arrangements in this country among many people. And therefore you get into burden of proof and evidence. And Barbadians have a funny way of saying, who is talking to who? He talked to her. Does she talk to him? And does talk extend to other arrangements?
The meeting was also addressed by St. George MPs Dwight Sutherland and Glenn Clark, among others. The Erdiston Teachers Training College has maintained the number of students enrolled in their educational programs. This year, there are some 243 graduates, but with 90 students gaining distinctions in various subject areas. Reports from graduates this year indicate that courses and research papers have been rewarding despite the challenges. Overall, many of the distinction earners have seen good results in the classroom from the hard work they put in.
One of the most rewarding things that I found coming out of the program was that a parent came up to me and they said, we were a little skeptical at first, Mr. Hines, because we know you'd never taught before. And they said, but after seeing the strategies you used and seeing how my son has reacted to how you teach him and the excitement he brings home, then I can't thank you enough. They actually wrote me a letter, a 2-page letter, and I felt amazed by that experience. That was the most rewarding thing for me.
The journey would not have been as successful without the lecturers who dedicated much of their time to get a job well done.
I found that it was very insightful. It was able to prepare me in a way that I never thought I could, because being in the teaching practice without any training is hard. You feel your way through, and the lecturers here were able to guide and assist you throughout the various core areas, which will be mathematics, language arts, instructional planning, and the sciences. And they were able to go through content with you and not only expose you to the content, but be able to teach you how to teach the content to these students.
Overall, most of the teachers have learned how to adapt to teaching in the classroom. They said that today's children do not seem to have much educational exposure.
Before, I would have been doing what we would call the traditional method of teaching, which is just taught and taught. But being exposed to the DPEG program, you learn about the constructivist method of teaching, whereby children are active learners, and that would have been my greatest benefit in the program, because then it was able to allow my students to be active learners.
In today's classroom, teachers are using more effective strategies to do their best in teaching tomorrow's scholars. The Education Minister wants a history of private secondary schools in Barbados written. Ronald Jones says these schools, many of which are now defunct, have made a significant contribution to the development of Barbados and have produced several outstanding citizens. Mr. Jones was speaking at the 65th anniversary church service of the unique high school at the St. Matthias Anglican Church yesterday.
This puts to rest a lot of the debate, a lot of the argument, a lot of the discussion about how school can contribute to your development and to your growth. Which school you go to and which school you didn't go to, all of that. Looking across the audience, and I'm making the assumption that the majority of you went to Unique High. And just reflect on your own lives and see how you have contributed to the development of yourselves, of your community, and of your country.
Anglican priest Canon Noel Burke, himself a former student of the Unique High, praised that and other schools in Barbados.
The school as institution provided all of the necessities and conveniences that will enable one to flourish in good times and in not so good times. And that this is done by wise and prudent management, that this is done by diligence and industry, hard work.
Barbadians are preparing to celebrate Errol Barrow Day tomorrow, and many still reflect on the stamp the father of independence and national hero, the Right Excellent Errol Walton Barrow, left on our minds. Some also remember the night when the Barbadian flag was raised for the first time in 1966.
Actually, the first time I ever saw him was at the garrison in 1966. Right? The night of independence, the first time I ever saw him. Right? And that was a pretty rainy night and so on. And I had not too long come at the Barbados. I used to live in Grenada, right? Yeah. And after the ceremony was over and so on, I even lost my way, started walking. I was living in Eagle Hall. I lost my way, started walking Christchurch and so on. I asked him, a fella, hey, tell me where am I?
I remember the nostalgia that took over this country on independence. And the things that stand out for me was the fact that we were able to lower the Union Jack and raise the Barbados flag. I then became a true citizen of country, and I felt very proud to be that. And I gave great thanks to Mr. Errol Walton Barrow.
It was plenty rain, and lots of people were there, but then you couldn't find your way out from the garrison, too much rain. And I didn't stay about no longer, because we had to run. Really a legendary man, like, you know, and
if we was to actually get his the words that he used to say and like in the Caribbean, we better off today. Because I find like we adapting all the negative things from like all around, and like the positive, like we keep forgetting.
I could remember when rain fall and Independence, the march was up at the garrison out there, they flood out. And we had a lot of here and there with people. The opposite people didn't want no independence, but we still get it.
Well, independence will always be very special, but 1966 was most memorable because I remember very clearly I was at work at the Daily News at that time, and we were preparing our edition for the next day, and that was very demanding. And we also enjoyed the whole atmosphere that prevailed at Garrison because we listened and listened intently. And CBC did what would be a very admirable job at that time to keep us as if we were there. So it was always very memorable, and we look forward again to those great feelings that will come along this time.
The sod was turned this morning in Vaucluse, St. Thomas to signal the start of a $28 million construction project, which is also expected to generate 200 jobs in an 18-month period. Environment Minister Dr. Dennis Lowe says the administration building for the Sanitation Service Authority should be completed by 2017, putting all its offices under one roof. Dr. Lowe says this is necessary because of increasing lease fees at the National Petroleum Building in Wilde, where the SSA's head office is located. The 5-story facility will be built under a public-private partnership with Morjani Caribbean, Caribbean Consultants Limited and Burnside International. It will be a bolt project, that is, built, operated and leased by private developers and then transferred to government, which has 20 years to pay for it.
The core values that have informed the decision to construct this building are environmental protection, energy and water saving measures, and greenhouse gas emissions reduction contributions. The ultimate goal of these measures in the construction and operation of this building is to assist in the building out of the sustainable endeavors of the government of Barbados.
One multi-billion-dollar company is promising to bring a host of developmental projects to the island. Sandals Resorts, through its philanthropic arm, the Sandals Foundation, currently invests in several Caribbean countries. Barbados will be added to that list following the opening of the Sandals Resort in Dover Christchurch last November. Regional Public Relations Manager for Sandals, Dominic Feedy, says Barbados can expect highly successful programs similar to those launched throughout the Caribbean.
We have like 26 adopted schools, for example, across the Caribbean. We have worked on environmental sanctuaries with the government of Jamaica and Turks and Caicos, teaching fishermen best practices so that they can fish in a more sustainable way, causing less damage to marine life, and also ensuring that we preserve an important attraction for the tourism industry, as in coral reefs. Diving in Barbados, for example, is a big business.
Mr. Feedy says the foundation is at the first stage of primary social research before launching large-scale projects.
We're taking this time to really engage, your government and engage NGOs and engage intellectuals to see what's the best way forward, so that we can, not just do social intervention work from a PR point of view, but do it because it's the right thing to do, and do it strategically and do it developmentally in a way that is impactful to the Barbados community, so that we can all benefit. Our staff ultimately come from these communities, and so we value that. That is a big asset for us.
A Barbadian senator is telling government to resist any pressure from international pro-marijuana groups. Senator David Durand says although discussions on the legalization of marijuana are popular in the global community, this is not the best move for Barbados.
Can we truly afford a lack of motivation in classrooms, the antisocial and sometimes aggressive behavior, the associative increase in criminality, impaired memory, infertility, respiratory infections, relational and parental challenges. Can we afford this? My answer is no.
The senator was speaking at a seminar held at Solidarity House entitled Issues in Alcohol Abuse. It was held by the National Commission for the Prevention of Alcoholism and Drug Dependency, along with the Barbados Council for the Disabled. After signing a petition for breathalyzer testing on the island, Senator Durand lamented the fact that it still has not been introduced.
In South Africa, it is said that 65% of deaths by vehicular accidents can be attributed to alcohol abuse in South Africa alone. In the Americas, 80,000 deaths annually are caused by substance abuse. In Barbados, no empirical evidence can be truly given because we have not yet enforced breathalyzer testing in this island. And it is time we introduce this testing and save some lives on our roads.
A local cleric has added his voice to the ongoing debate on abortion. Father Leonard Alfonso maintains that pro-abortion stances should not be entertained. During a service at their Roman Catholic Cathedral, Father Alfonso said there are several instances in the Bible, including the interaction between Mary and Elizabeth, which show that embryos are conscious.
He performed it when he was still unborn, which shows you why the world is so wrong these days when we're talking about abortion. Because Jesus was only about 6 days, 7 days, a week old when he performed his first miracle, and he was still in his mother's womb.